Welcome in, everyone. It is another wild and wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That's my buddy Calvin White. Pleased to be joining you for the next couple hours as we talk local, regional, and national sports topics on another beautiful Wednesday afternoon here in the mid-state. Calvin, we finally got some rain last night, at least here in Nashville, so my grass looks a little better, but it's still not enough. This drought that we've had, just 2 rainy days I can remember off the top of my head. It was that Friday night we went out to cover high school football, I believe in week 3, and then just a smidget of rain last night that had a little downpour here for about 15 minutes. But other than that, it's been sunny skies in the Middle Tennessee area for quite some time.
Yeah, there was a day here in Clarksville last week where one side of town just got an absolute downpour, and some places got flooded, and then the half of the town where I'm at didn't even get a drop. And so Wade and I talked about this yesterday. We did a little rain dance for your yard. We talked about how you mentioned your brown grass for the last couple of weeks. So uh, I didn't get as much rain here, but you know, uh, it was time for some rain in other spots.
It is not dying anymore. It is dead grass. I mean, it is brown. So all the rain would be welcome. It's been cooling off though. You can feel that fall weather coming. You can sense like just the time of day change, the sun going down a little quicker. So we're getting closer towards that winter, and I guess that time of the year where we have to reset our clocks. But nonetheless, we got a good show on deck as always here on a Wild and Wacky Wednesday here. In the second hour, we'll be joined by our colleague and our good friend Blaine Keller, who'll be in the media center or the suite this weekend at Nissan Stadium as the Tennessee Titans have their second home game of the regular season as the Titans welcome the Indianapolis Colts for an AFC South division matchup at Nissan Stadium on Sunday. It's going to be a special occasion this weekend as former Titans play-by-play voice Mike Heath will be inducted into the Titans Ring of Honor. We'll get Blaine's thoughts on that with Mike coming back after accepting the radio job at his alma mater at the University of Tennessee. We'll also get his thoughts on rookie quarterback Cam Ward, first impressions through the first couple of weeks. And we'll get his thoughts on that Titans offense and defense. The Titans offense through the first couple of weeks has been a disappointment. Just one touchdown on the board through 2 games against the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Rams. We'll get his thoughts on that defense as well. In our next segment, we'll be joined by Heather Williams as she makes her weekly pit stop with us. She'll discuss the Bass Pro Night Race at Bristol, where Christopher Bell picked up the checkered flag at Bristol Motor Speedway at Thunder Valley and completed the sweep for Joe Gibbs Racing in the round of 16. It was Chase Briscoe picking up the checkered flag in the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. It was Denny Hamlin winning at Worldwide Technology Raceway in the greater St. Louis area. And it was, as the aforementioned, Bell winning here in Bristol. So clean sweep for Joe Gibbs, the former head coach of the Washington Redskins back in the day. As we move to the round of 12 on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule, we also took a little Braves for the first time in a couple weeks on a Wednesday. Calvin and I will be celebrating a couple victories last night as the Braves took a doubleheader sweep yesterday in a rainy nation's capital in Washington D.C. The Braves have already won the series, won 3 games of that 4-game set, and they'll go for the sweep here in just about an hour for the 3:05 Central Time for his pitch. We'll also jump into the grab bag at 3 o'clock. We'll talk a little news and notes from the world of the NFL, college football, and the WNBA as well. So we have a jam-packed show on deck for you. Calvin, you ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll jump into last night's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Scores across the TWSLA in girls volleyball. It was BGA picking up a 3-0 sweep over Middle Tennessee Christian in Division II Single A district play in that middle region. It was Siegel edging Blackman in 5 sets in district play as well, 3-2. It was Franklin Road Academy, also in Division II Single A, picking up a sweep over Columbia Academy in straight sets. It was Murfreesboro Central Magnet picking up a sweep over Community in district play as well. It was Eagleville down in the Rutherford County area picking up a sweep over Santa Fe. That is a 3-0 sweep in straight sets. It was Lewis County picking up a straight set victory over Mount Pleasant in district play. It was Battle Creek 3, Marshall County nothing, straight sets in district played as well. It was Providence Christian sweeping Grace Christian Franklin 3-0 in Division II Single A as well. It was Riverdale picking up a 3-1 win over Rockville in district play. And the rest of these were all district play as well in straight sets. It was Columbia picking up a 3-0 win over Shelbyville, Stewart's Creek 3-0 over Smyrna. It was Wilson Central picking up a 3-0 win over Laverne, and it was Franklin Christian picking up a 3-0 win over Zion Christian, all those district matchups.
Moving over to high school girls soccer, CPA wins 2-0 over BGA. Gallatin downs Beach 3-0 in district action. Brentwood wins 6-2 over Centennial. McGavick 6-2 over Cane Ridge. Clarksville 1-0 over Kirkwood. Dixon County 2-0 over West Creek. Nashville Christian wins 10-0 over Ezel Harding. Those were all district matchups. Non-district action, Battle Creek wins 6-5 over Forest. Franklin Road Academy wins 5-1 over Webb School. We're back in district action. Good Pasture wins 4-1 over Davidson Academy. Sycamore downs Harpeth 8-1 non-district play. Hendersonville wins 6-0 over Green Hill. Henry County 5-0 over Clarksville Northwest. Franklin wins 6-0 over Independence. John Overton beats Hunters Lane 5-1. Kenwood 5-1 over East Hickman. Hillsboro 7-2 over Lawson. Lebanon wins 1-0 over Cookeville in district action. Merrill Hyde shuts out Martin Luther King 6-0. Columbia Academy blanks Middle Tennessee Christian 7-0. Page 7-1 over Nolansville. Oakland 2-0 over Blackman. Mount Juliet 9. Portland 0. Summit 3. Ravenwood 0. Culleoka and Richland tie at 2 apiece. Rockvale wins 1-0 over Siegel. Giles County and Spring Hill tie at 0. Station Camp gets a dominant 9-0 win over Greenbrier. Stewart's Creek wins 9-0 over Laverne. And Trigg County out of Kentucky beats Clarksville Northeast 8-0. Tullahoma wins 4-0 over Murfreesboro Central Magnet. Valor Collegiate wins 3-0 over Hume Fogg. Livingston Academy 5-0 over Watertown. Wilson Central shuts out Smyrna 9-0, and Lincoln County wins 3-0 over Zion Christian.
Major League Baseball last night. I'll give Calvin a quick breath as he went through a lengthy TLSA girls soccer slate. In Major League Baseball last night, we mentioned the Braves picking up a sweep over the Washington Nationals in the nation's capital. It was the Braves 6-3 winners in Game 1 of that doubleheader, and then in Game 2 that went to extra innings was the Braves picking up a 5-0 win as Chris Sale goes 8 innings and has 9 strikeouts in his start. Last night's Wade's Astros picked up a 6-5 win over the Rangers last night. They were still a half game behind Seattle with 10 games remaining in the AL West standings. In the MLS, it was Nashville Soccer Club picking up a 3-1 win over the Philadelphia Union. In the the first round of the WNBA playoffs, was the Indiana Fever evening their series with the Atlanta Dream. Fever 77-60 victors. They keep home court, and they will travel to Atlanta on a Thursday decisive Game 3. It was Seattle Storm edging past the Las Vegas Aces 86-83. They also even that series, and they will head to Michelob Ultra Arena on Thursday for a decisive Game 3 in the first round of the WNBA playoffs. Tonight's schedule in volleyball, just one game we have right now listed. It is Liberty Creek at Gallatin at 6 o'clock. In Major League Baseball tonight, it is the Astros and the Rangers at 7:10 Central Time. Then here coming up within the next hour, it is the Braves at the Nationals at the conclusion of their 4-game set in Washington. That is a 3:05 first pitch. You can find that one on FanDuel Southeast and FanDuel South. And in the second game of the WNBA playoffs for these respective series, it's the Phoenix Mercury at the New York Liberty at 7 p.m. on ESPN. The Liberty lead that series 1-0. It is Minnesota Lynx, at the Golden State Valkyries. That is a 9 p.m. tip on ESPN as well. Ladies and gentlemen, those were your scores, and that was your tonight's schedule, and that concludes our rundown. Our top story presented to you by the fine folks at Piggly Will and Neely's Mill in Columbia. They offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10 at the register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia. Presenting you our top story today as I look at my phone really quickly just to have the specifics. Last night, Calvin, we mentioned the WNBA playoffs are in full swing, and last night in the nightcap on ESPN that I watched, I turned on the TV and the Las Vegas Aces were winning. I'm thinking they're going to sweep this series against Seattle Storm, and keep it rolling and extend their winning streak to 18 consecutive games. Then out of nowhere, Calvin, the Seattle Storm go on a 16-4 run in the fourth quarter and defeat the Las Vegas Aces 86-83. They maintain home court and force a game three on Thursday, as I mentioned in the rundown, at Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas. It was former Notre Dame alum Skylar Diggins coming up big for the Storm last night. She had a game high 26 points, including five in the final minutes of the game to help seal a crowd at Climate Pledge Arena. It was the Aces' first loss since August 2nd. Throw it to you. Did you see by chance any of the game last night? Really entertaining matchup in the W.
I did not see any of this, but this doesn't happen to the Aces very often. Usually if they build a lead, even a little bit, they're going to hold on to that thing and close it out. And this is really going to put a twist on the WNBA playoffs if the Storm are able to come back and take Game 3 and eliminate the number 2 seed out of the playoffs. The Aces have the league's best player in Asia Wilson. We talked about that star power that the league has a couple weeks ago. And if Asia Wilson and one of the league's best teams are knocked out in the second round, I'm not one of those people to get worked up over TV ratings, but I think that the viewership would potentially go down on the playoffs. If one of the league's best teams and best players are out of the playoffs. But on the other hand, it's really cool when you see games like this where teams are able to make runs like this at the end of the game and make the playoffs more interesting instead of one team just rolling through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Aces led by 14 in the second half. So credit to the Seattle Storm for sticking with it with their backs against the wall and making a run. As I mentioned, Neka Bumake, Skylar Diggins all came up huge for Seattle last night. Jackie Young with 25 points last night for the Aces, Asia Wilson with 21. And you mentioned just the momentum that comes with this series, right? If I'm thinking of this from a Las Vegas perspective, we had an opportunity to quote unquote we've heard this in sports, this analogy, put your foot on their throat, right? And end the series and get it over with and not have to play in a game three, which is in the first round of the WNBA playoffs. It's just the best out of three. It's 2-3. And so Seattle has all the momentum, even though Las Vegas will be the home team on Thursday night, tomorrow night. But Seattle, you gave them life, and they have the opportunity to go on the road. They have nothing to lose. The Aces are the favorite in this series. They are the higher seed. And so we will see, even though Becky Hammond is a seasoned coach who's won WNBA titles already, Asia Wilson will most likely add an MVP to her award case, and she's a multi-time champion as well. So the Aces have the pedigree per se, but we will see how they react after a disappointing maybe last 5 minutes of the game. They were winning. They had the opportunity to seal this series, as I mentioned, and it slipped away last night in Seattle. Going to mention the other game in the W last night. It was the Indiana Fever who are banged up, obviously without Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, but it was Kelsey Mitchell and the crew doing just enough. Kelsey had 19 points last night for the Fever as they even their series with the Atlanta Dream. The Fever 77-60 victors over Tiana Pow Pow, Ryan Howard, and the crew from Atlanta. That series will also have a decisive game three tomorrow night in the A. Tonight's schedule, as I mentioned in the rundown, it's the New York Liberty looking to complete the sweep over the Phoenix Mercury, and it's the Minnesota Lynx going to the West Coast looking to complete the sweep over the Golden State Valkyries, who were the first team expansion team in WNBA history to make the playoffs in their inaugural season. Obviously, the Minnesota Lynx, the number one seed in the WNBA playoffs, led by Naphesia Collier. That's a really talented group. Collier averaging 22.9 points per game on 53% shooting from the field. So the WNBA playoffs, it's in full swing. You can just feel the intensity ratchet up in these matchups. So it'll be a joy to watch moving forward. As we mentioned in the opening, got a good show on deck for you guys. Looking forward here in the next segment to be joined by our good friend Heather Williams as she makes her weekly pit stop with us. She does discuss the Bass Pro Night Race at Bristol, which saw Christopher Bell pick up a much needed win for him and his Joe Gibbs Racing crew as Joe Gibbs completes the sweep in the round of 16 and heads into the round of 12 this weekend at the Magic Mile at New Hampshire Motor Speedway with some momentum. We'll make our visit with Heather Williams right after this break, so stay with us here on a wild and wacky edition of Main Street Sports Today.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
333.
Busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back in. It is a wild and wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is Calvin White. Just waiting here a few moments as we wait on Heather Williams to make her weekly visit with us, discuss the Bass Pro Night Race here at Bristol this past weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway in the East Hills of Tennessee and Thunder Valley, where it was Christopher Bell edging past Brad Keselowski in a late race restart to capture the checkered flag and to capture his first win of the NASCAR playoffs and complete the sweep in the round of 16 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Calvin, I know you mentioned you did not watch the race this past Saturday night. I'm going to level with you and be honest with you as well. As the resident Notre Dame fan on the show, I did not watch the ending of the Bass Pro Night Race at Bristol as well. I was lamenting the eventual loss by my Fighting Irish on Saturday night against the Texas A&M Aggies on a botched extra point and a non-holding call on the last play of the game. So looking forward to get here to join us really quickly as we discuss the events of Bristol Motor Speedway. And Calvin, from what I can tell you as we stall and wait for Heather, tires were the topic of Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend. Heather mentioned in her interview last week with us as she previewed the race how a couple springs ago tire fall loss was massive, and drivers had to manage their equipment, manage their Goodyear Racing Eagles. Or after you reach a certain plateau of laps, 40, 50, 60 laps, your tires would just die, and your speed and your lap time would drastically drop off. And we saw that this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway as well, where several drivers had issues. Ty Gibbs specifically managing their Goodyear Racing Eagles, which brought out a lot of cautions and brought a lot of strategy and mix-up to this weekend's race at Bristol. Ultimately, it was Christopher Bell taking advantage of all the strategy and passing a couple cars on a late restart to win at Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend. Looking at the NASCAR Cup Series standings as we head into the round of 12, obviously the round of 16 concluded this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, and there were 4 drivers eliminated from the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. We'll get into those with Heather as she joins us, but it was Alex Bowman, Shane Van Gisbergen, Josh Berry, the Middle Tennessee native, and Austin Dillon, who were all eliminated from the round of 16. All 4 of those guys struggled throughout the first 3 races of the playoffs. And so I've gotten the green light now from our producer, Mark, that Heather is joining us here on Main Street Sports Today. Heather, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. So we
Hey.
appreciate you. Yeah, you're here. We appreciate you being here a little earlier compared to normal. We were just mentioned, I was talking to Calvin right there. Tires were the topic of discussion this past weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. Just kind of give me your thoughts on the race. You mentioned last week how we could see similar tire fall off and management to that spring race a couple years ago where Denny Hamlin won. Another Joe Gibbs racing Toyota. It was Christopher Bell this weekend. So just give us your thoughts on this past weekend's race at Bristol, which saw a lot of chaos.
Yeah. I mean, we asked for chaos. We got it, right? I mean, be careful what you wish for. The thing that was interesting about this, and it kind of goes back to, it's the opposite of what happened here in the spring. In the spring, there was a ton of tire wear in practice. And everybody's like, oh boy, here we go again. We found the magic formula. It's going to happen. And then it warmed up the next day and there was 0 fall off in the actual race. So I think that we've determined that this is predicated a lot by temperature. It was cool by fall race standards. They brought a more aggressive tire with even more fall off than what we had in previous races. So just a little bit of temperature variation made a huge difference in the amount of fall off that you saw in those tires, which is what people said they wanted, because it is incredibly entertaining to see the world's best trying to manage tires, trying to go slow and to save, to speed up. Everybody's on different agendas. You have no idea who's going to come out on top, who might blow a tire. So it was really entertaining. I think it was even more entertaining than the spring race a year ago, not this past one, but in 24, just because about midway through the race in 24, you could kind of tell that Denny Hamlin had the best grasp on what was going on and on the tires. And you couldn't really tell who was going to come out on top on Saturday night. So that made it a little bit more fun.
You know, Heather, I asked you before the playoffs started, some drivers that maybe felt the pressure to capture the NASCAR Cup Series championship this year. You mentioned, William Byron and Denny Hamlin. Well, last weekend, Christopher Bell captures a checkered flag at Thunder Valley. And what a week it had been for him. The week before at Gateway, he crosses the start-finish line 7th. But kind of went on a little rant saying, we have the speed to be competing for wins and compete for this championship, and we're just not doing it. What a week for Christopher Bell to bounce back, complete the sweep for Joe Gibbs Racing in the round of 16, where all 3 of their cars capture the checker flag in the respective races.
Yeah, and this sport's so hard, right? Because success is very subjective. It's also, what have you done for me lately? Christopher Bell now has 4 wins on the season. That's as many wins as anyone, but he hadn't won since very early on in the season. And when you win 3 in a row, you get off to a hot start, then you're ticking off 15th, 20th, 7th, 5th, 21st. That just becomes very difficult because you can be in victory lane. You feel like you should win. And I think that, last week at St. Louis. That's a track that's generally the type of track that Christopher Bell's very good at. And to come out 7th was very frustrating to him. To then be able to bounce back at Bristol, a race that he's been good at, but he admittedly is not that great at tire management. And to be able to play that game and come out on top, I think was huge for him. I think it was huge for him. I think sweeping the round is huge for Joe Gibbs Racing because, I mean, who doesn't think one of their 3 drivers is going to win a championship at this point, right? They're the only guys that have been to victory lane in the playoffs. So they look very strong. The next round is a good round for them with the exception of maybe the Roval, although Briscoe is decent at the Roval. The other 2, that Christopher Bell's a decent road racer. Denny Hamlin's terrible. So, I mean, everything's pointing their way, though. Everything's looking good for Joe Gibbs Racing and Christopher Bell specifically because he has gotten walk-off wins at the Roval and at Martinsville in previous seasons. So he's got to feel like if he needs a win, he can pull one out.
Yeah, Heather, before we look ahead to the round of 12 that starts this Sunday at the Magic Mile at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, obviously this past weekend at Bristol was a cutoff race for the end of the round of 16. 4 drivers eliminated: SVG, Austin Dillon, Josh Berry here from the Mid-State, and Alex Bowman. And of those 4, I think a lot of people would say, it's probably a disappointment more for Alex Bowman not to move on to the round of 12, considering the equipment that he has at Hendrick Motorsports. Can you kind of just talk to me about just his round right there? Obviously, he had some pit crew issues earlier in the round, I believe, at Darlington. So obviously, the speed is there for Hendrick Motorsports for say, and Alex Bowman has shown in the past that he can win big races, but just not the success here in those first 3 races.
Yeah, I think you could put him and really Josh Berry in the same boat, right? Because Berry, for all intents and purposes, is in a Penske car, and Penske's won the last 3 championships, and the other 3 Penske cars have moved on in the championship round. It is disappointing for Alex. He did just about everything he could other than win at Bristol. I mean, they showed up, they showed out. He had a very good car, had a chance to win and knock his teammate Chase Elliott out. So, I mean, yes, it's disappointing, but he also went in with the deficit of playoff points. He just didn't have them that like his teammates had because he hadn't won as many stages or as many races as some of his teammates have. But like I said, I think he and Josh Berry are kind of the same boat. I mean, Josh Berry, gosh, worse luck than that guy had in the first round. He finished last in every race, and only once did he even have a slight bit to do with it. Most of the time it was just really bad luck or someone else's mistake. So I look at those 2, and especially since I kind of had Josh Berry as my sleeper, like I thought these tracks fit him really well, and they do fit him very well. He just had bad luck. I look at those 2, and those are the 2 that I say shoulda, woulda, coulda. They probably should have advanced to the next round.
Yeah, the round of 12 starts this weekend at the aforementioned Magic Mile at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. The cutoff line has been reset. The 4 drivers that find themselves below the bubble heading into this weekend: Austin Cindric at -1, Joey Logano at -2, the 2 Penske cars right there. Then Ross Chastain -2 with Logano, and Tyler Reddick -3. Bubba Wallace 1 point above the cut line in 8th, and Chase Elliott 5 above in 7th. You mentioned just the tracks in this round. Any of those guys below the bubble right now, Heather, you feel really good about their chance to maybe advance and get above that cut line?
Gosh, it's hard to pick against Joey Logano, isn't it? Because he always seems to find a way into there. I mean, last year he was eliminated in the round of 12, and Alex Bowman gets disqualified, and he turns it into a championship. So I think you start there, just because Logano always finds a way. But I also really kind of like Austin Cindric. He's very good on road courses, and I think he could be a guy that if he needed to go in and steal one at the Roval, of the guys that are still left in that position, he's probably the guy, either him or Reddick, that I would give the best chance of being able to do it. But there's something missing on the 45 team. That is not the same team that won the regular season championship and made the championship for last year. I can't put my finger on exactly what's wrong with the 45, but they're not clicking on all cylinders. They're missing something. So as a sleeper pick from the guys below the cut line, I really like Austin Cindric.
Yeah, then the last thing for me as we head to New Hampshire this weekend, any guy, obviously Toyota in the past has run really well there with Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex in the past, Kyle Busch back in the day. Any of those guys particularly that stand out for you this weekend that can capture the checker flag at New Hampshire?
I mean, obviously all the Gibbs guys, right? You just mentioned, you just said it. I mean, they seem to find their way to victory lane. Maybe look at Chase Briscoe, because I think particularly the 19 car has been pretty good there. I don't know that Chase himself has had a ton of success, but the 19 car in the past has been really good there. But I think there's going to be at least one race where a non-playoff driver wins. Based on how well they ran last week, maybe this week is finally the week that Ty Gibbs gets to victory lane. But I do like those Toyotas, specifically the Gibbs cars.
Heather, kind of switching gears over to ETSU football. We talked about them last week. After this past Saturday, they dropped to 1-2, fell 35-31 on the road to FCS number 25 West Georgia. We kind of talked about after that Tennessee game, going into that West Georgia game, that this kind of felt like a game that was an opportunity for ETSU to kind of get back on the right track and kind of figure some stuff out. Just what did you see out of ETSU from this game?
I didn't get to watch much of the game. I listened to a little bit because I was at the track. But I think the big theme for them is that they just got to find consistency, right? That's what Coach Healy talked about in his weekly press conference on Monday. They've clearly got talented quarterbacks. They've clearly got talented running backs. They've shown that at times. But they just don't get the consistent play out of everybody they need. Their defense is making mistakes when it's costly. And so I think the talent is there, but it's very difficult. And you know this in the age of NIL and transfer portal and every team being different. I mean, this ETSU team has gone over now 3 complete roster overhauls in 3 years with 3 different coaches. It's very hard to build up any kind of consistency just from the status of, there are people here that got recruited by George Quarles. There are people here that got recruited by Trey Lamb, and now people that got recruited by Will Healy. And they all came here for different reasons and different agendas. And to get them all on the same page is difficult. I think this team is really close. I think they showed a lot in the West Georgia game, even though they lost. But they've got to figure it out. Conference play starts next week. This week, I think they have Elon, if I'm not mistaken. But, that's a new beginning for them, because if you win the conference, it doesn't really matter what you did in the non-con. You get the automatic berth. So they've got one more week to figure out, get everything straight and be ready for the real season.
And, we talked about something, similar to that effect yesterday with Brian Reeves, who's the radio play-by-play man for Austin P football. Austin P football has, I believe, over 70 new players on the roster this year, and they've managed to start 2-1. They beat an FBS opponent in week 1. They played a competitive game against Georgia, and then they blew out Morehead State this past week. And we talked about how it was kind of an anomaly to have that many new players on a team in this era of college football and be able to figure it out that quickly and kind of gel. What do you think ETSU has to do to kind of, speed that process up a little bit and kind of gel a little bit like you're talking about?
Well, I think, it would be almost an advantage if they had all new players, right? Because they would all be Will Healy's guys, right? They'd all be there on the agenda. But because you have guys basically from 3 different coaching regimes, I think that makes it a little bit more difficult, because some of them may still feel a little loyalty to a previous coach or whatever. But Healy's the guy to get it done. He's going to figure it out. He's super smart, and he knows how to bring folks together. And I don't think there's any division or anything like that. I just think that there's different skill sets and different motivations and things between the different guys from the different groups that maybe isn't all clicking on all cylinders. But I think they'll get there. The Tennessee game aside, they were very competitive in the West Georgia game, and then they blew out Murray State to start the year. So this is not a bad football team. They've had a tough schedule. And I think when they get into conference play, I think you'll see a more confident and a more competitive team.
And, all 3 games to this point, we've seen Cade McNamara and Jacoby Criswell both get action for ETSU. This past week, Cade McNamara throws 2 interceptions, and Jacoby Criswell comes in and throws 3 touchdowns. Is this, was this past week just, Cade McNamara wasn't playing well, let's get the backup in? Or is this still, somewhat a little bit of a quarterback battle to this point where they kind of want to see what they have with both guys?
Coach Healy has made it crystal clear that they're both co-starters. He said the week 1 that if he could put them both out there to start, he would. If you ask for one quarterback in the interview, he brings both. So I don't think it even is fair to call Criswell the backup, because that's just not the way that he sees them. He sees both of them playing. Now, if there's one like last weekend that has a hot hand, he may stick with them a little bit more. But he plans on using those quarterbacks like you would use a running back or a receiver or a tight end, right? You're going to bring him in and out, situational plays. Whoever's hot might get more touches, but he considers them to be co-starting quarterbacks.
And West Georgia threw three interceptions and still scored 35 points. You said you didn't get to watch much of this, so I don't know if you'll be able to give a in-depth answer on this. But when your opponent throws three interceptions and they still score 35 points and you lose the game, do you think this was just an instance where the ETSU offense wasn't able to take advantage of those takeaways?
Yeah, and Coach called out specifically in his press conference this week the running backs, right? Because they really control the time and the clock, and he didn't feel like he was getting the sustained plays and any explosive plays from his running back room, which is supposed to be his strongest position. The first couple of games, even in the Tennessee game when they struggled, they got some big runs out of their running backs. So that's something they've got to figure out. I think that they want to run the ball a lot and then fill in the gaps with those very two talented quarterbacks. And honestly, they want to run the ball from the quarterback positions, particularly when Jacoby Criswell's in there. So, yes, I think it is a huge indictment on their offense, which going into the season, when you look at all the transfers and all the talent on the offense, you would have thought that the offense would have been the stronger side of the ball. I'm not sure that either side is playing to the level that they want to, but certainly their inability to turn turnovers into points was a concern.
Yeah, you mentioned the running back room. 5 guys got at least 6 carries in the game on Saturday, including Jacoby Criswell, carried it 7 times for 32 yards. But, average yards per carry among those guys was just a little over 2.5 yards.
Yeah, and that's done.
Yeah, and, between Cade McNamara and Jacoby Criswell, they got sacked 5 times. Cade McNamara took 4 of those. And I guess, the running game and the offensive line goes hand in hand. So is this kind of, one of those things that goes hand in hand, or is this just the running back room not getting it done?
I think it goes a little bit hand in hand. It's a completely different offensive line than they had in the past. I think they have maybe 2 guys, maybe 1. I'm trying to think that's back because coach has brought in some of his own players too. So I don't remember like who came from where. When you have 3 coaches in 3 years, it starts to get a little jumbled a little bit. But I do think they felt like it was really talented. I know there are some Division I FBS players on that offensive line. So yeah, I mean, that many sacks is disappointing when you feel like your offensive line should be more talented or is more talented than what they showed on Saturday. And,
coming up this week, you were correct. They do play Elon this week. Elon comes in 2-1. They've come off, they beat Davidson 55-7 week 2. They beat Western Carolina by 6 points last week. It's what seems to be a good opponent, but, if ETSU drops, their 3rd straight in week 4, is this, a situation where, we mentioned how they're still trying to figure some stuff out and things like that. But if they lose again in week 4, is this a kind of thing where, this is kind of what they are and this is what the rest of the season is going to look like?
Maybe. I mean, I think Elon is, Western Carolina was considered one of the favorites in the conference. And so for Elon to beat them shows that that's a pretty good football team. It'll give ETSU a really good idea of where they stand going into the conference because of that. And if they can really be competitive in the SoCon this year. I don't think you can really make any judgments about what the season's going to be till you start getting into the conference play, because much like in mid-major basketball, really right now where the Southern Conference is, they're not a 2-bid league. They have been in the past. ETSU has gotten an at-large from the SoCon, but they're not really a 2-bid league right now. So all that matters is those conference games. Like, all that matters is what you do in those conference games. If you win the conference championship, losing to Elon doesn't mean anything. But I think they have to at least be competitive enough against Elon to feel like they can then go do the same in the conference. Like if they get blown out by Elon, then yeah, that's probably who they are, and they're just not a very good football team. But if they lose like they lost to West Georgia, and it's a tight game, even though it's not necessarily like the greatest game ever played, but if it's competitive, then I think there's still some hope for the season. I do.
Heather Williams of WCYB Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Heather, I have to ask you a question as the resident #1 fan of Chiefs Kingdom. Just like your Chiefs, my fantasy team is 0-2, and I have one Xavier Worthy on my team, so I need him back, Heather. I'm putting that on your shoulders. I need him back.
Don't we all need him back? I think he's supposed to be back this week. He actually practiced last Friday, and they just decided to hold him out a little bit for precautionary. But as long as he has no setbacks, and I honestly, with the race, have been kind of out of the loop of things a little bit. But it's my understanding that they're going to try to go with him this year. He's not going to have surgery, so I think he should be back this week, next week at the latest. So fingers crossed, yeah, because we have really not much going on offensive weapon wise, and It's really painful to watch.
Absolutely. Heather, appreciate you joining us here and jumping in an hour early and talk a little NASCAR. So appreciate you jumping in.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Heather. Coming up on the show as we reach our second commercial break, we'll talk a little Braves baseball on this other side as the Braves picked up a doubleheader sweep over the Washington Nationals in the nation's capital yesterday, and they'll go for the 4-game sweep this afternoon at 3:05. We'll dive into those 2 victories last night and some news and notes across Major League Baseball right after this on Main Street Sports Today. So stick with us.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
This day in Braves history, September 17th, 1997. Braves outfielder Ryan Klesko records 4 hits, including a first-inning grand. Bobby Jones helped Atlanta defeat the visiting New York Mets 10-2. Klesko's grand slam was the Braves' 12th grand slam of the season, setting a new major league record. Right-hander Greg Maddux earned his 19th win of the season for the Braves as they take down the visiting New York Mets. That's today's day in Braves history, September 17th, 1997. And just like on this date, over, 28 years ago, last night the Braves picked up a doubleheader sweep over the division rival Washington Nationals in Game 1 of this doubleheader yesterday afternoon at Nationals Park. It was Jose Suarez picking up the spot start for the Braves, and he went 7 innings of no run, or excuse me, 2-run ball. Had 9 strikeouts, which is a career high, and only allowed 5 hits. It was Jurickson Profar and Matt Olson going back to back in the fourth inning to give the Braves the lead that they never relinquished, and it was Ronald Acuna Jr. going 3 for 4 in game one, as the Braves took it by a final score once again of 6-3. In game two of the series, or the doubleheader last night, it was the Braves picking up a 5-0 win in extra innings. Chris Sale was absolutely phenomenal for the Braves yet again. He tossed 8 innings of 3-hit ball with 9 strikeouts. It was Matt Olson once again coming up clutch for the Braves, as he's done throughout the last week, really. He had a 3-run triple in the top of the 10th inning. Olson is 12 for 27 over the last week with 4 home runs and 11 RBIs. So, Calvin, we've kind of lamented, at least on the Wednesday portion of this show, the Braves seeming to always lose on Tuesdays. Well, that went away last night, as not only picked up 1 win, but they picked up 2.
Yeah, this is I want to say the first time that we've been able to talk about a Braves win on a Wednesday since we started our alternate hosting schedule on Main Street Sports Today. And, in a season that didn't have many bright spots, I guess that if you want to pick something out, the Braves, picked up what was already a lead over the Nationals in the division and kind of stretched it out. They've got a 7-game lead over Washington now for 5th place. So unless something catastrophic happens, it looks like the Braves aren't going to finish in dead last. And they're still only math is hard, 2.5 behind Miami. So if something happens for Miami, the Braves could potentially sneak up into 3rd place. And I think that if you would have asked any Braves fan, after the first month or two of the season, if they would have finished 3rd in the division, they would have said absolutely not. But that's what happens when you're in the same division as 2 of the worst teams in the sport. But 3rd place is better than 5th. And, Braves had 13 hits in the first game of the doubleheader last night. It's solid offensive performance for the Braves have been few and far between this year. So, got to almost to the 70 win mark. One more win, they'll get there.
Yeah.
So Braves is trying to, pick up as many wins as they can toward the end of the year.
Yeah, they are unfortunately guaranteed a losing season now that they've reached the 83 loss mark this past weekend against Houston. So they will not have a winning season. And you kind of said something funny that my mom has reiterated to me. I just don't want them to finish last. That's what she's told me. Which is, if somebody would have came into the season, with all the expectations, the Braves making 6 or 7 straight postseason appearances coming into this year, if somebody would have told you that they would be vying for last in the National League East standings, we would have thought of a catastrophe had happened, and it kind of has with all the injuries that the rotation has taken, the lack of offense for the first several months of the season that the Braves have had. But I mentioned Matt Olson being 12 for 27 over his last week. He has one of the top weighted runs created plus in baseball, top 10. So Matt Olson's having a really good season for the Braves, despite not seeing the home run totals that we're used to with Matty O, just 27 on the year, but him hitting 278, which is 20 points above his career average, him having 91 RBIs, and him absolutely being on fire. I believe he had homered in 4 straight games before that second end of the doubleheader yesterday. So Matty O has been absolutely on fire, and he's probably one of the leading candidates for Gold Glove at first base. So he's had a really solid year. Once again, not the home run total that he had even last year or the year before, where he set the franchise record per se. But Matt Olson playing some really good baseball for the Braves right now, and it's good to see them stringing some hits together. Ronald Acuna Jr. kind of started to pick it up a little again after going over a lengthy slump. Ha-Seong Kim seems to be a guy that's really fitting into that lineup nicely with his good friend Jurickson Profar. So some good vibes. Hopefully Drake Baldwin can continue. He swung a little better yesterday and in game one of the series against the Nats. So hopefully he can get things going and hold off Cade Horton for Rookie of the Year. So the Braves will look to go for the series sweep in Game 4 here in about 15 minutes. First pitch at Nationals Park. It's Braves right-hander Hurston Waldrop, former first-round pick out of Florida, who is 4-1 on the season with a 2.78 ERA. He's looked really good for the most of his year this season after getting his first appearance rather at the Bristol Speedway Classic against the Reds. He will be opposed by Brad Lord, who is 5-8 on the year with a 4.21 ERA. That's once again a 305 pitch here, just coming up on FanDuel Southeast and FanDuel South. You can find that one there. Last night for Wade's Astros, they picked up a 6-5 win over the visiting Texas Rangers. The Astros moved to 83 and 69 on the year. They trail the Seattle Mariners by a half game in the AL West standings with just over 10 games remaining. The next matchup for those Astros are tonight, 7:10 Central Time. It is Christian Javier, who's 1-3 with a 4.78 ERA, facing right-hander Jacob deGrom, who will be a tough matchup for the Stros, who is 12-7 with a 2.82 ERA on the season. And Calvin, really quickly before we hop into a note of Seattle's catcher Cal Raleigh, it seems like this is one of those divisions. I mentioned it on the show time and time again. The Mariners have gotten a little hot here as of late, but it seems like nobody really wants to take claim of this division. It feels like it really could go down to the last day of the regular season.
Yeah, Wade and I have talked about this on Tuesday for the last couple of weeks. I think every time we talked about the division race in the AL West, the Astros either had a 1 or 2 game lead over the Mariners, and really nobody wanted to take the lead. And now the Mariners have taken a half game lead over the Stros, like you said. And I said this a couple weeks ago with Wade that I don't think anybody ever says that in a 162 game season that every game matters. But now that the Mariners and Astros, and we've gotten to this point in the regular season, every game is starting to look like it matters from here on out. You want to lock up that division, get that automatic spot in the playoffs if you can. We've seen what the Astros have done in the playoffs over most of the last decade. Obviously, they don't have the same core that they had for the bulk of those runs, and Yordan Alvarez got hurt again the other day. Wade and I talked about that. He had an MRI scheduled for yesterday. Never saw what his results were, but
We'll
if they're without
here coming up,
yeah,
don't spoil it.
if they're without Yordan Alvarez for a chunk of this playoff run again, it could be an early exit trip home for the Astros.
Well, the team that's competing with them, as we mentioned just moments ago, is the Seattle Mariners, looking to win the division and get that home field advantage, at least for the first game of the AL division, AL wild card or division series. I have not looked at the standings, to know if they would be guaranteed that automatic berth. We'll get into that in just a second. But when it comes to the Mariners, obviously they have a leading candidate for AL MVP. That is the big dumper himself. It is Kyle Raleigh, who it's rare, Calvin, when you make history twice in one night with legends like Mickey Mantle and Ken Griffey Jr., but that's what Kyle Raleigh did last night. He hit his 55th and 56th home run last night for the Mariners. He broke a tie with Mickey Mantle for a switch hitter for the most home runs for a switch hitter since 1961. Then he hit his 56th home run, which matched the club record by Griffey in 1997. He was 5 for 5 last night as the Mariners picked up their 10th straight win. So 5 for 5 with 3 home runs on a night where you can pass Mickey Mantle and tie Ken Griffey Jr. I think that just puts more stake to his claim that he should be American League MVP.
Yeah, anytime you are in the same sentence as Mickey Mantle and Ken Griffey Jr., that's good no matter who you are. But the stuff he's doing from the catcher spot, I guess that's part of the argument that people can make for him being the MVP over Aaron Judge. But, and I guess that kind of speaks to how good Ken Griffey Jr. was. I thought Ken Griffey Jr. would have hit more than 56 home runs in a year one year. But, especially switch hitting catcher, 56 home runs in a year. 56 home runs is impressive from anybody, but especially when you're back there, catching almost every game. I still think it's Judge for the MVP, but this is probably, I'm sure that there's a Johnny Bench season that rivals this, but this is one of, if not the best, not just offensive seasons, but seasons overall from any catcher in the history of baseball.
And I disagree with you, Calvin, just because of that point. Aaron Judge, a great player, great hitter, does everything for the Yankees. He's the captain for the reason, but he's not a catcher. He doesn't play that position, which Raleigh predominantly does. He doesn't have to catch a pitching staff and understand different sequences and game plans. I think with the numbers that Cal has, the average is not what Aaron Judge's average is. But for him to hit 55, 56 home runs as he did last night and do that as a catcher, I think that's really hard to pass up for him to be American League MVP. I know Aaron Judge is going to be in the race every year, considering just how great of a player he is. But it takes a special season to unseat what Aaron Judge has done this year. But I believe Cal Raleigh has had a special season that is historic, as we mentioned with his home runs last night. But that'll be definitely something that we can monitor moving forward with a week left. So the next person he's looking to pass, besides Griffey, who he holds the tie with, is Aaron Judge's American League record, who had 62 home runs in 2022. I don't believe he'll get there, obviously, with just over a week left, week and a half left in the season. But worth noting, we've seen Kyle Raleigh go on these massive streaks. And last night, he could do that really quickly. So moving forward, you mentioned Yordan Alvarez, who suffered an injury, an ankle injury that you and Wade discussed on a left ankle sprain. Astros manager Joe Espada said Tuesday that is a pretty significant ankle injury that will keep him out of the lineup indefinitely as Houston battles for a division title and American League playoff spot as the season winds down. Espada said to the media, "This is going to keep him out for a while. Let's not get into days, weeks, anything like that. We're going to take it one day at a time, but this is going to be something that's going to take a while to heal." Alvarez underwent the MRI, as you mentioned, yesterday after suffering the injury while crossing home plate Monday in a victory for the Astros against the Rangers. He was seen leaving the Astros clubhouse on crutches and in a boot. He's missed a lot of time this season, Calvin. Obviously, he is one of the premier sluggers in the league. He's just been limited to 48 games played. He has a 273 average with 6 home runs and 27 RBIs. Not only is he a magnificent player, who's done it time and time again in big moments. But they're in the middle of a division race, just a half game behind Seattle, not having one of your big sluggers per se. That's going to really hurt the Astros in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, like you said, he's only played 48 games this year, and he's one of those. If you do make it into the playoffs, you want every bullet in your holster that you can have, and without Yordan Alvarez, I'm not saying the Astros can't be successful in the playoffs, but it would certainly make it a lot harder. Like you mentioned a second ago, I haven't pulled up the wild card standings, so don't know what would happen if the Astros haven't, or if they end up not winning the division. But you want to be at full strength as much as you can going into the playoffs, and not having Yordan Alvarez is certainly going to throw a wrench in that. But the Astros have gotten to this point mostly without him. So if anything, they've had to do it most of the season, and maybe they can figure it out going into the playoffs if they happen to make it there.
Another player that made history last night, Calvin, and this is just a historic player overall, will go down as one of the greats to ever play in this game. It's Los Angeles Dodgers Shohei Ohtani, who twirled 5 no-hit innings and hit his 50th home run of the season on a 430-foot blast that registered 113 miles per hour off the bat. He's the first player with 50 home runs in back-to-back seasons since Alex Rodriguez in 2001 and 2002. And he's also the first player in MLB history to hit 50 home runs and record 50 strikeouts as a pitcher in the same season. So just a marvelous player. I hate that he plays for the Dodgers. I know that is to the liking of one Tommy Bryan, but a really special player who is probably one of the most magnificent talents we've ever seen play this game.
Yeah, I mentioned it with you, I think last week, and I mentioned it with Wade yesterday because something came up with Shohei. There is one player in the history of Major League Baseball that's won more than 4 MVPs. Shohei Ohtani is about to win his 4th in 5 years. If he ever gets back to, he's never been an elite pitcher, but it's just impressive what he does when he goes and hits 50 home runs, and he's a serviceable pitcher. He's a good pitcher. He's not like an elite pitcher, but what he does paired with what he does at the plate, and we saw what he did last year when he stole 50, 60 bases or whatever it was. And, when he wasn't pitching last year, he showed that he could tweak his game a little bit to where he could be a more deadly threat on the bases. And now that he's back on the mound, he's just proving again that, when his career is all said and done, some people are already saying it, but by the time his career's over, there might not be no argument who the best player in the history of baseball is.
Yeah, absolutely. As we butt up against the top of the hour here in our next commercial break, I'll really quickly run through the MLB postseason bracket. If the playoffs were to start today, as we just have a week and a half left in the regular season, I believe the Braves only have 10 games remaining. So that just shows you how quickly it is flying by as we inch closer towards October baseball. If the playoffs started today in the American League, your buys would be the Toronto Blue Jays and the Detroit Tigers moving automatically to the ALDS. In the wild card series, it would be Waves Astros traveling to the Bronx for a 2 out of 3 series against the Yankees. It'll be the Boston Red Sox going to the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seattle Mariners. In the National League, the buys would go to the Milwaukee Brewers and the Philadelphia Phillies. They've already clinched the NL East already. They clinched that earlier this week in Los Angeles. The Brewers still looking to wrap up the National League Central. In the wild card, it would be the New York Mets who are clinging to that final spot, traveling to Chavez Ravine against the Dodgers, and it will be the Padres also in the NL West playing against the Cubs, whose magic number is down to 1. The Cubs rookie right-hander Cade Horton was spectacular last night as he has become the betting odds favorite to win the National League Rookie of the Year award over the Atlanta Braves' Drake Baldwin. He outdueled Paul Skeens yesterday as the Cubs won and they inch closer towards the playoffs. So you see it in that beautiful bracket that Mark has in front of you. Just looking at these matchups really quickly, Calvin, that Cubs Padres series looks really good to me in a 2 out of 3. The Mets have been slumping of late. They've kind of picked it up over the last couple of days. Obviously, that was a rematch of your National League Championship Series from last year. Could you imagine a Dodgers versus Phillies, though, in the NLDS? That would be something to really keep an eye on. In the American League, you think Astros and Yankees, just their postseason matchups over the last several years. Obviously, the Astros have been the bugaboo for the Yanks. And then potentially Boston and Seattle, 2 teams that have played really well this year. Boston makes the trade away of Rafi Defers, but having Garrett Crochet as their game 1 starter in a wild card series would be a nice addition to have. Obviously, the Mariners have great pitching as well. The Gritty Tigs, the Tigers, obviously made it to the ALCS last year, or excuse me, ALDS. They lost to the Guardians, but a lot of good playoff teams, and obviously the Brewers being the number 1 seed in the National League. All the things I have my eye on.
Yeah, that Phillies Dodgers series would be really interesting if the Dodgers were able to get past the Mets in the wild card. Yankees Astros would be interesting just because, like you said, of what the Astros have done to the Yankees over the last couple of years. After last year's postseason run for the Tigers, or regular season into the postseason run for the Tigers, it would be really cool to see the Tigers make some noise in the playoffs, kind of give us some reminiscence of what those early 2010s Tigers looked like with Miguel Cabrera and Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and the boys. We've mentioned it a lot with the Brewers. It seems like the Brewers are either at the top or win that division every year just about, but they've never been able to have the postseason success. So it would be cool to see the Brewers make a run if they were able to get past the Padres or the Cubs, whoever came out of that wild card spot. And baseball is probably the sport where we get the most parity in the playoffs from year to year. Outside of those years where the Astros were going to the American League Championship Series and the World Series every year, it felt like. The Tigers are a team that, before last year hadn't been good in a while. Boston, they've been all right, but haven't been good, like elite good in a couple years. The Padres, they've been good, but haven't been able to make that postseason run. Cubs are really good, like World Series legit good for the first time in a while. But there's nothing like playoff baseball. And, like you said, about a week and a half left in the regular season. And I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next week and much over the next month of what's going on in the MLB playoffs.
Really quickly in minor league baseball last night in their final regular season series of the year was the Nashville Sounds losing to the Louisville Bats up in Louisville by a final score of 3-1. The Sounds dropped to 81-62 on their season as they wrap up international league play this week. Coming up after the break, we'll jump into the latest edition of the Grab Bag and we'll discuss news and notes across the world of the NFL, WNBA, and college football. So stay with us here on Main Street Sports Today.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Second hour on a Wednesday. Welcome back into Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That's my buddy, Calvin White. Second hour, it's time to jump in the latest edition of the Grab Bag as we discuss news and notes across the world of sports. Calvin, we're going to start off in the National Football League. Obviously, the Bengals will find themselves, even though they are 2-0 on the season, something that the Bengals have not been able to call themselves for a while with the slow starts they've had under Zach Taylor. Obviously, they're going to be without moving forward. Quarterback Joe Burrow, who suffered a turf toe injury this past weekend that will cause him to miss at least 3 months of its season. Bengals have made some news over the last 24 hours, signing veteran quarterbacks Mike White and Sean Clifford, former Packer, to their team's practice squad, according to National Football League media. Obviously, Jake Browning is going to be their starter, filling in for the injured Burrow. White signed with the Buffalo Bills in January of this year and spent training camp and the preseason with the team. However, he was cut on the final roster cuts. He completed 61% of his passes for 2,247 yards, 9 touchdowns, while tossing 13 interceptions in his career. Clifford, former Penn State quarterback, spent 2 seasons on Green Bay's active roster in their practice squad. He's only completed 1 NFL pass, which came in relief of Jordan Love in 2023. But this is big for Cincinnati. Calvin, obviously Jake Browning completed 21 of 32 passes for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions in Sunday's win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But it seems like until Joe Burrow can come back, which will be at the latter part of the season in December, Calvin, that the Bengals are just going to try to tread water and try to hold on in a really tough AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, this was a Bengals team that last year, finished 9-8. Joe Burrow was fourth in the MVP voting, and they still couldn't make the playoffs. They haven't been able to keep Joe Burrow upright for most of his professional career. And for Joe Burrow to do what he did last year with that dreadful offensive line, he threw for almost 5,000 yards, threw 43 touchdowns. It kind of felt like, Joe Burrow was legitimately carrying the Bengals for most of the year. And so if they can't even have a successful year last year with what Joe Burrow did, obviously it's different from year to year, but I'm not so sure how, you mentioned they're just going to try and tread water, but I'm not so sure that Sean Clifford and Mike White and whoever the other quarterback is going to keep the Bengals afloat.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Browning has shown in the past, Calvin, that he is a backup that can do some things. He's come in. Obviously, Joe Burrow has been injured before, and that's been the problem with his tenure in Cincinnati. And I'm going to put the blame, per se, on the offensive line for the Bengals, which has absolutely been horrendous under Joe Burrow's tenure. They have got him. I mean, he hurt in his rookie year. I believe he tore his ACL because they cannot protect their quarterback. So part of the blame per se is on the Bengals offensive line and their inability to protect their quarterback and their front office for not protecting their franchise QB. But Jake Browning has shown in the past that he can start and string together some drives and some wins. Zach Taylor is one of the better offensive minds in football. He still has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown in that weapon core. So can they pick up a third straight win this weekend? It is very possible. They're taking on the Vikings, who find themselves without their quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who will be sidelined for at least 2 weeks with an ankle sprain. So I think if you're the Bengals, it's better to be 2-0 than 0-2, which they have found themselves before to start season. So you work from here. You try to just tread water, stay around that 500 mark when Joe Burrow comes back, because he has the ability to be one of the best players in the National Football League when he returns healthy. Another player that has been injured and will be sidelined for at least 4 weeks, paving a way for an opportunity for a local standout to get lead carries in the National Football League. The Minnesota Vikings have placed on injured reserve running back Aaron Jones for at least 4 weeks with a hamstring injury that he suffered in the team's 22-6 loss against the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell said Monday that Jones was unlikely to play in Week 3 against the Bengals, and he would now be sidelined, as I mentioned, for 4 weeks. He had only rushed for 46 yards on 13 carries to his first 2 games. He also though had hauled in 3 catches, 44 yards, including a 27-yard touchdown pass in the fourth quarter, and the Vikings win over the Bears in Week 1. All this paves the way, Calvin, for a bigger role for former Gallatin alum and Georgia Tech running back Jordan Mason, who will now assume lead backfield duties for Minnesota. He was acquired via trade from the San Francisco 49ers in March after he ran for 789 yards last year for an injured. He runs angry. He's a big back that also has some speed. So an opportunity for a former local alum and former local hero up in Sumner County to get his shine once again in the National Football League.
Yeah, really cool to see some of our local products get their chance in the league. I didn't get a chance to throw in a shot at you earlier, but I was going to shout out NBA alum Marcel Reed for taking out your Fighting Irish this past week.
Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Don't do it.
But yeah, really cool to see Jordan Mason get this opportunity, if it does.
You want me to hurt you, don't you? You want me to hurt you?
No. But yeah, really cool to see Jordan Mason get this opportunity, even if it does come at the expense of Aaron Jones, him getting hurt. So we already know. We've already seen a little bit what Jordan Mason can do in his limited action for the Vikings, I mean not the Vikings. Vikings. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely, you're right.
yeah, Vikings. Really cool to see. And we'll definitely keep an eye on what he does in the next couple weeks until Aaron Jones comes back.
Calvin, I knew this next bit of news was going to happen after the Virginia Tech Hokies fired Brent Pry after their 0-3 start to the season, which included a butt whooping last weekend against Old Dominion, off the heels of a second half butt whooping against top 25 program now, the Vanderbilt Commodores. Former alum Michael Vick, who's arguably the greatest Virginia Tech athlete in school history, who led them to a perfect regular season and a berth in the national championship game in 1999. Freshman, he has been linked in rumors to potentially being one of the candidates for the Virginia Tech job. He is currently the head coach at Norfolk State and HBCU, where he's won two in his first 3 games as head coach. He is listed to be in the mix, according to some candidates revealed by CBS Sports, including South Carolina's Shane Beamer, whose dad Frank coached at Virginia Tech. Vic finished third in the Heisman Trophy race in 1999 and later to be the number 1 overall pick by the Atlanta Falcons in the 2001 draft. I could see this, Calvin. Michael Vick has been very quick, obviously, with a lot of season left for his Norfolk State team to shut down these rumors. But it would be really nice to see him get an opportunity at his alma mater and lead Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, but also kind of on the flip side of that, just because you played there doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach.
Fair. Fair statement.
The guy's never been a college football coach before this season, and now we want to
until now. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's 3 games into his college head coaching career, and these rumors are only circulating because he played there. And I mean, it would be cool. I'm not gonna say it wouldn't be cool. I would watch. But from kind of a Virginia Tech administration standpoint, I'm not sure Virginia Tech wants to go hire a guy who's coached 3 games as a head college football coach.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? We saw with Deion Sanders that at HBCU at Jackson State get some experience, right, as a head coach at the college level. We're moving on, obviously, to Colorado for the last couple of years. So, Mike Vick, Deshaun Jackson is another coach who's coaching at the college level. That was an NFL standout. Obviously, Michael Vick, a former, as I mentioned, Virginia Tech standout, also played for the Falcons and the Eagles, et cetera, in the National Football League. If he gets experience, though, right, and shows that he has a knack for this and understands all the dynamics that comes with being a college coach, recruiting, NIL, et cetera, building a staff around it. And it's just an interesting name if you're Virginia Tech to have in your back pocket. People are obviously going to draw these correlations that he played at your school. And obviously is one of the beloved Hokies of all time, that if the opportunity presented itself, he might jump at that opportunity. That's all I was saying. I understand your points are very much valid as well. Virginia Tech with the situation that they're in, looking for maybe a seasoned head coach, I can understand that as well. But there are going to be some correlations drawn between Mike Vick and, him potentially going back to Virginia Tech this time as head coach. One last nugget before we head off to our next commercial break, as we are eventually going to get into our segment with our coworker BLAINE KELLAR, talk a little Titans. And this is back in the world of the W, where Dallas Wings standout Paige Beckers, who was the number 1 overall pick this past year in the WNBA draft. She was named the 2025 Kia NBA Rookie of the Year, the first player to earn the honor with Dallas since Alicia Gray in 2017. She received 70 of the 72 votes rather, from sports writers and broadcasters. Washington Mystics guard Sanaya Citron received 2 of those votes. Becker started in 36 of her appearances and averaged 19.2 points, 5.4 assists, 3.9 rebounds, and 1.6 steals, in 33 minutes. Shot 47% from the field and 88% from the free throw line. She had led all rookies in total points per game, total assists, and assists per game. Also ranked second among rookies in steals and free throw percentage and fourth overall. Really one of the dynamic talents in this league. She set rookie records for the wings as well and finished third all time in total points for rookie and assists in WNBA history. Calvin, thoughts?
Yeah, even ever since Paige Becker's freshman season at UConn, we've been talking about, how she was going to have a really successful college career. And, after 4 or 5 years at UConn, we were talking about how she was going to have a really good professional career. And she's already gotten a head start, winning the Rookie of the Year, national champion at UConn. She's well on her way to adding to that star power that we've talked about with the WNBA, along with, Caitlin Clark and Asia Wilson, Alyssa Thomas, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink. If she's not already there, then she's well on her way to joining that list of stars in the league. And hopefully we get to watch all those players and Paige Beckers have really long professional careers.
I agree with every word of that statement. Coming up after this next break on Main Street Sports Day, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It's BK time. No, it's not Burger King time. It is BLAINE KELLAR time as he joins us. Let's talk a little Titans football, and obviously we'll talk to him about the first couple weeks of Cam Ward in a two-tone blue. And it's a big weekend for the Titans this week, as not only they host the AFC South rival Indianapolis Colts at Nissan Stadium, it's also the induction of former Titans play-by-play voice Mike Keith into the Ring of Honor this weekend. So it should be a festive event on Sunday. We'll talk to BK right after this break here on Main Street Sports Today, so stay with us.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into this Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is our buddy Calvin White. And another friend joining us, our colleague BLAINE KELLAR of Main Street Media, joining us here for a segment to talk about Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans ahead of their Week 3 matchup against the Indianapolis Colts at Nissan Stadium. BK, how we doing?
I really appreciate you bringing up this BK as a nickname. My wife swears that it's not that. She thinks that my initials are just that. So I'm going to play this back for her later so she knows that it is officially a nickname now. Thanks guys for having me. Appreciate the time.
I mean, it's in the Twitter handle, BK at the end. So it makes sense. And
she thinks I made it myself. She thinks I've forced it onto other people, but for the record, I haven't. And now I'm vindicated here. and I can kind of rub it in a little bit later.
There you go.
It's
There you
like
go.
as easy. It's like as easy of a nickname as you can get. It's
I
easy
know.
to stick.
That's right. The restaurant helped out with that. So
There you go. Blaine, we appreciate you joining us here. To talk a little Titans here ahead of their week 3 matchup against the Indianapolis Colts at Nissan Stadium. Obviously, last weekend, you were there for their home opener against the Los Angeles Rams. You wrote a really good piece here on Main Street Media that is online for everybody to read on our website, where the Titans players, L'Jarius Sneed, Jeffrey Simmons, were reacting to Cam Ward's first touchdown pass in the NFL. And I just want to get your thoughts. Obviously, a 2-week sample size. He's the first quarterback to be the number 1 overall pick who's a rookie to not throw an interception for the first 2 weeks of his career. But it's been rocky start for Cam, obviously, and the Titans offense as a whole to the first 2 weeks of the season. He's just 31 of 61 passing, so just above 50% for 287 yards and just 1 touchdown and been sacked 11 times. So, Blaine, just, through the first 2 weeks, give me your thoughts on what, Cam has looked like in your eyes and this Titans offense as a whole.
well, I think after a season of watching Will Levis a year ago, the Titans players are enamored with what they've seen out of their quarterback through the first 2 weeks. That touchdown, the only touchdown that Cam Ward has thrown, the only touchdown the Titans have scored to this point in their season. L'Jarius Sneed called it a generational throw. Peter Skoronski said it was one of those elite level throws. Jeffrey Simmons said, I've been in the league 7 years now, and that was unbelievable. So I think the Titans themselves are impressed. Of course, the coaches are impressed. Cam has had his struggles, without a doubt. He hasn't thrown a pick, but he's had the 2 fumbles so far. That's important to note. But the only thing that's been generational or elite about these Titans so far has been Cam Ward. Every other piece has been lacking and needing an improvement so far. I think that obviously goes hand in hand. The number 1 quarterback needs to play well, yes, but everyone else needs to play well around him too in order for this team to start winning or just to start showing improvement.
Blaine, Cam Ward's been sacked 11 times through the first 2 games. This was a problem, last year, and it's been a problem the last couple of seasons for the Titans. And, I'm not saying that Will Levis was a good player, but I think that a bad offensive line last year made him look a lot worse than what he actually was. Now, obviously, there was a lot more hype around Cam Ward coming into this year, number 1 pick, all that stuff. But, what has been the Titans' biggest issue with putting at least a competent offensive line on the field?
Well, I think, Calvin, part of it goes hand in hand. Sacks can easily be attributed to the offensive line, but on the same side of the coin, it can be credited to a quarterback as well. And their pocket presence, Will Levis struggled with that last year, which is why that number was so gaudy. Now, that number has looked worse this year, despite the team trying to get new pieces on the line, signing Kevin Zeitler and Dan Ward Jr., moving J.C. Latham back to the right side where he played in college and started there, and keeping Peter Skoronski at his position, and, of course, getting Lloyd Cushenberry back. But I think the biggest Achilles heel so far has been the fact that J.C. Latham was out with the hip injury and kind of aggravated it in that Denver game as well. So then the right side of your line that you have designed for J.C. Latham to anchor has really taken a huge shot. It's a massive drop-off between J.C. Latham and John Ojukwu or Ali Udo, both of which showed their struggles through these first 2 weeks.
Yeah, Calvin, just looking at some offensive numbers and rankings for the Titans offense through the first 2 weeks of the season, just 32nd overall, obviously last in the National Football League in overall offense, 29th in pass offense, and total points, 24th in rush offense. So obviously not a good formula to be in the 20s and the 30s when it comes to the National Football League. What's the recipe? Obviously, if you're a Titans fan, you can take a bright spot in Iamaner, his performance last week against the Rams. Obviously, not having Tajay Spears to injury, maybe he's affected the running game a little bit with just Tony Pollard. What's maybe some bright spots you've seen on the Titans offense and some ways they can improve?
The rookie class has been really impressive on the offensive side, I feel like. Of course, Cam Ward has stolen the show through these first 2 weeks. He's doing all he can in his regard to keep the Titans afloat. Alec Io Manor is kind of developed into Cam's top target, as Calvin Ridley had a tough matchup in the first week, was invisible at spots in week 2, had a couple of drops. He's known to start slow and then turn things on for my fantasy team. Let's hope he does that. But also, that's allowed Chimere Dike to be a viable option in the offense as well. Gunnar Helm to be involved at tight end. Dike's been a great punt returner and kick returner too, after maybe not having that vote of confidence right away from special teams coordinator John Fossil. He's played really well. So I've been really impressed by how this rookie class has played. It's a refreshing feeling with how the Titans have drafted as of late. And I think I kind of touch on how they need to get better. The offensive line, we've talked about the sacks, also 23 penalties through the first 2 weeks. Not all of that falls on the offense, but a large part of it, especially on Sunday, was with regard to that offensive line. And then those veterans too. You need to see someone like Calvin Ridley break out of an early season slump and start to show out to help Cam Ward kind of put up those numbers that you're expecting him to.
Blaine, I remember last year when the Titans signed L'Jarius Sneed, there were a lot of people saying that just in terms of pure talent, this might be one of, if not the most talented secondary the Titans have ever had. And then we saw last year they got absolutely torched. Now, L'Jarius Sneed wasn't available or healthy for most of the year. And, they've only played 2 games so far, but right now they're 21st in total defense, or in pass defense, I believe. What's been the biggest problem with that secondary? But kind of on the flip side of that, it doesn't seem like the Titans have had a very successful pass rush in the last couple of years, so that can kind of play into that.
Yeah, Calvin, just starting with the thought on L'Jarius Sneed in the secondary of last year, how different a year makes, right? Because Chido Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed were your starting corners week 1 of 2024. And then 2025, it was likely to be 2 different ones had L'Jarius not come off of the PUP list that quickly. Denard Wilson, the defensive coordinator for the Titans, has preached this collective pass rush idea that they want to have as a defense because they don't have a talented star edge rusher like a lot of teams do. There's not a generational kind of player on that front 7. Jeffrey Simmons is very good, but outside of him, they haven't had that kind of production. They don't have the players for that. So that requires you to blitz some defensive backs, blitz some linebackers, which opens things up in the secondary and allows some of the big pass plays that you've seen so far. To Sneed's credit, he played pretty well this past week. Against Devontae Adams, he gave up a couple of big plays, but played about 92% of snaps after missing 11 months. That was pretty impressive. And, he didn't practice today, had a back injury, but if he stays healthy, he's proven that despite a long absence, he can be the top corner on this team. Jarvis Brownlee, if he can fix up the penalties, can be a solid contributor at corner too.
And Blaine and Calvin mentioned specifically that pass rush. The Titans invested a high draft pick, a 2nd-round pick in Femi Oladejo, who hasn't really shown up so far, at least through the first couple weeks. How important is it for the Titans for him to flash at some point in his rookie year and at least add some depth and some presence to that outside linebacker defensive end spot?
Really going to be interesting to see how Femi's development plays out, because they drafted him in the 2nd round knowing that this was a guy that played linebacker in college until his last season when he moved to edge and started to show some ability there. So the Titans draft a project player in the 2nd round, knowing that they don't have an edge rusher that can contribute right away and or maybe develop Femi on the roster. I don't know if Arden Key or Draymond Jones or Jihad Ward are going to be the greatest mentors given their production in the league for Femi Oladejo. So now you've got a project pick that's thrust into the fire right away and having to kind of go out there and play a little slower. He's having to think, right? Because this is a position that's still new to him. So maybe as the season goes on, he starts to show some things, but this is definitely a patience pick, despite the fact that they're having to throw him out right away.
And Blaine, for those Titans fans that are listening to us, they're probably screaming at us for the lack of this question not being asked at this point. So we're going to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Obviously, a lot of Titans fans are disappointed with Brian Callahan through the first 2 weeks. His management of this team, specifically in the first half when they're closing out against Denver, maybe some clock management, some lack of urgency last weekend against the Rams after the interception. How do you evaluate him through the first 2 weeks and really the first year plus of his tenure here in Nashville? Obviously, he's somewhat learning on the job, but obviously, Titans fans only having 3 wins so far through his first 19 games is not good. So, rank the hot seat for me, Blaine, and what you want to see from Callahan in order to maybe keep his job at the end of the season.
Yeah, David, he's 3-19 so far, and I think you could probably point to a good moment here or there that he's had, that Cam Ward has had so far, but there have been, it's starting to simmer, that seat, because of what that record is, and because of what happened in Denver. I think last week, yeah, he definitely could have taken a shot at the end zone after Cody Barton picks off Matt Stafford. But let's say that pass is picked. What are we talking about on Wednesday then? Oh, Brian Callahan should have gone for the field goal to take the lead into half against a really good Rams team. So the conservative call, you can overanalyze it, but he did go into the half up 13-10. Now, where Brian Callahan needs to be better is the second half and the fourth quarter. His team has struggled so insanely bad. They have been incredibly terrible in the second half after halftime in the fourth quarter. And you've just got to see that bit of improvement alongside Cam Ward's continued growth. We went into the season knowing that this team was not going to be that good. So the biggest point of growth is if Cam Ward continues to develop under this guy, and so long as the Titans start to look maybe a little bit better, I think that's what would allow Callahan to keep his job. But I think on the same side, you don't really know what's going to happen with Amy Adams-Strunk. And if this team loses to Mike Vrabel in a couple of weeks at home to the Patriots and is still at 0/1 wins, what does she decide to do at that point?
Blaine, 3 of the Titans' next 6 games are against divisional opponents. Next week, they host the Colts before going to Houston. Then they go to Arizona, Las Vegas, and then you mentioned host the Patriots before traveling to Indianapolis in Week 8. Just specifically looking at those divisional games, Indianapolis is 2-0 right now. Houston's 0-2. Houston's won the division in the last couple of years. How big are these next couple of weeks just in terms of, not getting behind in the division race and, trying to set yourself up to potentially be a player in the AFC South at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think in the locker room, they're probably thinking about that a little bit. I'm sure the players don't want to punt on the season after week 3, but at the end of the day, the front office and the coaching staff, I think they're well aware of what this season is about and where this team is going to be. Maybe the division turns into a battle for 8, 9, 10 wins like it has in the past, and the Titans can find themselves in contention. But more than likely, what's going to happen is that this Colts team is maybe still not going to punt on Sunday, run away with a win at Nissan Stadium. Daniel Jones will look good. Then they got to go play the Texans, and C.J. Stroud will get right. Lose to the Texans, the Jaguars look better. The Titans don't necessarily look like that team that has made that much progression that they could fight up against those 3 other teams in the division that have all kind of looked better from last year.
Not Calvin, sorry, Blaine, as we close with you, appreciate you joining us. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of teary eyes, at least for the fan perspective, and probably in the front office this weekend as Mike Keith returns home, gets inducted into the Ring of Honor on Sunday at Nissan Stadium as the Titans take on the 2-0 Indianapolis Colts, who you mentioned have not punted on the season. They picked up a walk-off win against the Broncos. They picked up the walk-off win last weekend against the Broncos. Mike Keith will become the 19th member of the Titans Ring of Honor. He had called every single game for Titans radio from 1998 through 2024 before returning to his alma mater, Tennessee, to call football and basketball games. Really quickly, Blaine, he said it's the most complicated set of feelings I've ever had, based on the fact that I'm very excited on one hand and extremely sad on another. I've never been through anything like this. The University of Tennessee opportunities is just fantastic. To be involved in college athletics at my alma mater. Everything that goes on with it is incredibly exciting. But I'll leave the Titans with nothing but wonderful memories on so many different events on and off the field. Made so many friends. So it really is complicated. I don't know how to describe it well because I've never been through anything like this in my life. I know it's going to be an emotional scene on Sunday as he gets inducted into the Ring of Honor. I mean, for those of us who've grown up here in the Mid-State, the GOAT, one of the best to ever do it. So maybe describe some emotions that you feel like people are going to be experiencing Sunday when Mike gets that opportunity to see his name unveiled.
I think Mike's going to feel really emotional for sure. There's going to be a lot of pride coming back to where he spent so much time. On a lighter note, I think he'll feel pretty good because it's a lot more fun probably calling the Tennessee Volunteers right now in that high-powered offense than the Tennessee Titans, even with Cam Ward. One fun note I'll share on that, the UAB and Tennessee game on Saturday, the new Titans play-by-play voice Taylor Zarzer will be on the call for that game in Neyland while Mike Keith is calling the game on the radio. So kind of cool to see them be in the same place Saturday and the same place Sunday.
Blaine, just kind of wrap us up here. No more questions from me. We appreciate you hopping on to talk a little Titans with us. As always, Main Street Media colleague Blaine Keller. Blaine, thanks for hopping on.
Hey, thanks, guys. Be sure to check out the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast and TitanInsider.com. Terry McCormick and I will have you covered for this week's game and for the rest of the season. We'll see you guys.
Appreciate you, BK. Coming up after the break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It is the final segment on a Wednesday. It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday, and we'll get into the wildest and wackiest stories from across the globe coming up right after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier Whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
Final segment on Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is my buddy Calvin White. Wrapping up today's show with Calvin's favorite segment. He scoured the web. Got some help from our colleagues as well, Maurice Patton and Wade Neely. I'm sure he is excited about some of these that we've discussed in the wee hours of this morning. It's time for our wild and wacky segment. So, Calvin, I turn the baton over to you to get us started.
Yeah, our first.
He's laughing already. He's laughing already.
I see the video Mark's got queued up in the green room. He hasn't put it up yet. But the headline reads, Stunt performer pulls a car while on fire to break world record. An Australian daredevil lit his body on fire and pulled a car a distance of 328 feet in 56.42 seconds to earn a Guinness World Record title. Mark, you got that video?
He looks like he's working on it. Calvin, why are we doing this?
I don't know. There's just no way that feels good.
Obviously not. He collapsed right there I mean, goodness, like
Says Josef Todling became the first person to hold the record for fastest 100-meter car pull in full body burn when he completed the stunt in Vienna on June 24th. We always talk about how like people have to search for these records, and then kind of on the flip side of that, how these records even exist. Why does this one even exist? Where someone would
yeah,
make the world record, where somebody would be tempted to light themselves on fire.
that's the real question and important question that you asked, Calvin. I don't know why in the world somebody would want to do something like this. I mean, it just has no appeal. I have no desire to be lit on fire, let alone pull a vehicle. Being on fire and doing manual labor while doing it, trying to set a world record, is not something that is on, excuse me, my bingo card. So like I said, I think some people just do these things just to say they did it. Very dangerous. I have no desire to be on fire. I like my temperature the way it is. I like life right now as we speak. So I have no desire to be lit on fire to say the least.
Says Toddling already held multiple records that involve setting himself on fire, including the longest duration full body burn without oxygen at 5 minutes and 41 seconds, farthest distance pulled by a vehicle, fastest 200-meter cycle during a full body burn, and farthest distance full body burn on a zip wire. I think somebody needs to check on our boy and figure out why he likes to be set on fire so much.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched The Incredibles when it first came out and wants to be Jack being set on fire or whatever, but I've no desire to join him and try to break his record on pulling a car that would hurt in itself, you know. But being on fire while pulling the car, anything I'm out on that. Can't do it. Not doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we will leave that to the people that desire to do that. But moving on to our next wild and wacky story. I believe, yes, a Nigerian chef named Hilda Bachi cooks up nearly 20,000 pounds of jollof rice. She earned a Guinness World Record by cooking up a serving of Nigerian-style jollof rice weighing in at nearly 20,000 pounds. I have no idea where you get 20,000 pounds of rice. I also have no clue how you cook 20,000 pounds of rice. I'm a rice fan. I'm not so sure I want 20,000 pounds of it.
That is a long cooking process, I could say the least. I wonder what the temperature underneath that um, big skillet, pan, whatever it has to be. Obviously, you see the length of the utensils, the equipment to flip the rice, to get it over, to make sure it's all cooked thoroughly and through. The amount of bodies that you have there, I bet you the food is probably pretty. I would try it. I too am a rice fan. Put me some sauce on there. It seems like it tastes pretty good. Um, the effort though that it comes into making that, obviously, you can feed a lot of people with 20,000 pounds of rice. But I assume that we had one of these, I believe, last week where it went to a good cause to feed some people. I would say that this did so as well. Um, so yeah.
Says it took about 9 hours to prepare the dish, which included about 8,818 pounds of washed basmati rice, 362 pounds of fresh goat meat, 485 pounds of Gino Asun and peppered chicken cubes, and 1,322 pounds of her own jollof mix.
Have you
Where do these people get this much of one ingredient?
have you had goat before?
I have not.
I'm trying to
Have you?
remember if I'm trying to. It's maybe I've had lamb before. Um, I can't remember. I can't remember. My memory's bad. Um,
You're getting
but
old.
yeah, I am. Be older next month. But That might taste pretty good. Like I'm a food guy. There's a lot of it has to be an extreme food for me to say no to. I'm pretty chubby, so um food always sounds good for me and free food sounds even better. So, you know what? If I got a portion of this, I might try it just to be completely frank and honest with you.
Says the rice was dished out onto 16,600 plates and served to the thousands of spectators in attendance. So the food went to a good cause, like you mentioned a second ago. We have another wild and wacky food story coming up in a minute. But first, we're going to go over to New York for Rytoberfest. Hundreds of people named Ryan gather for Rytoberfest in New York. Um, Hundreds of people sharing the same first name met up in New York for the second ever Rytoberfest to celebrate the moniker Ryan and attempt a Guinness World Record. Um, the event was the latest in the group's string of attempts to break the Guinness World Record for the largest same name gathering, first name only, which was set by 2,325 people named Ivan in 2017 in Bosnia.
Was Ivan Aronin a part of this?
I don't know. We would have to send him a text. Says the event Saturday attracted Ryans from as far away as Australia. The organization said alternate spellings such as RIAN are allowed, but last names do not count and no Bryans are allowed. So that they were very strict on the type of Ryan that could show up to this function.
And you see a lot of men in this photo, but I will say that Ryan is a dual name for men and women. I know a Ryan Allen who is a female. So you can get your steady mix here. It's a name that has some dual meaning. I mean, you have some other dual names for men and women, as well. So that's interesting. That's a lot of Ryans in one setting. I don't know if they had a meeting of the Davids if I would necessarily go. You would have two in my household, considering I am a junior and my father is also a David. So I guess we could book a ticket together. But that's interesting. I'll have to ask. We'll have to ask Ivan if he made the trip across the pond when the Ivans met. Not sure that would be his type of function per se, but I'll report back to you next Wednesday.
Says the Ryan meetup previously attempted to break the world record in 2024. That attempt ultimately fell short of the record. The first Rytoberfest in New York in 2023 was attended by over 200 Ryans. The organization said hundreds of Ryans attended Saturday's event, but official numbers have not yet been released, so it is unclear whether the record was successfully broken. Rytoberfest also served as a fundraiser for the Ryan Callahan Foundation, which supports the families of pediatric cancer patients. So, a little fun event that goes toward a good cause.
Yeah, we like those. We like the good causes.
Yeah. We're probably going to move. This next story is probably going to be the wildest of our wild and wacky stories. Shout out to Blaine Keller, who we just had on the show for feeding us this story last night. This is from our friend and coworker Chris Gregory over at the Portland Sun. The headline reads: Portland man charged after reported threat to Knoxville veterinary clinic. A Portland man is facing charges after he allegedly threatened to blow up the University of Tennessee Veterinary Hospital in Knoxville last month. Why did he threaten to blow that up? I'm glad you asked. Joseph McDormand of Portland was charged with harassment and making a threat of mass violence after he allegedly called the Knoxville clinic around 5 a.m. on Thursday, August 7th, asking for his pet spider monkey to be seen. After being told he would have to wait until the hospital opened at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, McDormand reportedly told the operator that, quote, "If my monkey dies, I am coming here to blow the whole expletive building up." So, I have a lot of questions about this one. Why do you decide to get a spider monkey? Where do you get a spider monkey? And why do you need to go 3 hours away to get medical attention for your spider monkey?
Yeah, the more important question that you ask is where does one acquire a spider monkey? Um Now I don't know, he it says a Portland man, so I would assume like you that this person lives in Portland. or is a native of Portland. I think that's the difference when you said of driving to Knoxville for 3 hours, that trip. If he was in Knoxville now, I can understand why he went to University of Tennessee Veterinary Hospital. But goodness gracious, the real question is, where the heck do you get a spider monkey, and why do you want a spider monkey?
I don't know. I have no clue
There's
where
only
you would
room
get
for
one.
dogs in this household, not cats, no any other animals, dogs only.
Yeah,
No spider
and
monkey either.
if
So
if your spider monkey needs help that bad, that you have to go to a professional hospital instead of just your regular vet down the street, your spider monkey's probably not making it 3 hours down the road. I hate to tell you.
that's wild. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want that thing sharing a room with me.
Yeah, I don't know if I would uh like seeing that thing in the dark roaming around my house.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. To threaten to bomb a place because they're not open and they don't want to see you yet. I mean, that's a little extreme too.
Google
So,
also says it's illegal to own a spider monkey in Tennessee,
well, there you go. There you go. So he might get some additional charges in addition to that.
which makes us ask even more. Where did he get a spider monkey? The clinic refused to see McDormand after that and notified University of Tennessee police of the threat. After running the phone number, McDermott was identified as the suspect. McDormand was scheduled to appear in Knox County Criminal Court on September 15th to face arraignment on the charges, both of which are felonies. So this guy, he already had an illegal spider monkey, it looks like, so he's racking up the charges.
Yeah, he is.
So hopefully, his spider monkey got taken care of. Hopefully the little
Well,
fella
he
is
got
all
taken
right.
care of. He
Yeah,
got taken care of for sure, considering he's behind bars.
yeah, and his spider monkey got a show.
There you go.
So we're gonna move on to our fifth wild and wacky story.
This might have to be the last one, by the way, Calvin. Just throwing you a heads
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Our last one is not very wild and wacky, so we're gonna end with this one. Headline reads: Cheating scandal nearly sinks World Stone Skimming Championships. Organizers of the World Stone Skimming Championships in Scotland said a cheating scandal led to the disqualification of several competitors. The World Stone Skimming Championships, an annual celebration of the sport, also known as stone skipping, is held every September on the western Scotland island of Easdale. The rules of the competition require the stones thrown by competitors to skim across the surface of the water to be naturally occurring slate from the island, but several competitors in this year's event were found to be wielding rocks that appeared to have been shaped and smoothed by machine. I was never a good rock skipper.
Nope.
Obviously, there are a lot of people that feel strongly about the world rock skipping championships that they feel like they have to cheat to win. But
Yeah.
I also don't like. What do you think the people say when like people bring rocks in and they're like, "Hey, can you smooth this rock out for me?" And they ask, they probably don't ask many questions, but if they happen to ask why, somebody, I think I would be pretty shook if somebody said I have to compete in the World Rock Skipping Championships.
Yeah, the first thing I thought was, like you said, I'm not the best rock skipper when I get to a pond or like a little body of water. Nonetheless, though, I mean, I guess people will cheat at anything to try to win a championship. So that I guess that's another thought that I had. So kudos to you, Calvin, for once again scouring the web for the wildest and wacky stories across the globe. You're done for the week on Main Street Sports Today. I believe you had some football on Thursday and some football on Friday. Where are you headed, really quickly?
I'll be headed to Joe Burns and Ezel Harding on Thursday, and I will be at Kirkwood and East Robertson on Friday.
You can follow Calvin on X at CalvinWhite55 for all the updates from Joe Burns and from Kirkwood. Should be a good one on Friday night as two Division I Power 4 commits between Kamari Blair at Kirkwood and Zach Groves get at each other on the opposite sides of the trenches between the Cobras and the Indians. I'll be back tomorrow with Maurice Patton on a Throwback Thursday. Looking forward to talking to you guys then. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night. See you then.